Alright, we got to get the person in charge of the mic
Yeah.
more on the ball. So I was just having a little cookie treat that he made. Alright. Again, the investigation, you know, I help you a lot to understand that it's healing the negative. It's healing the pain. It's healing how you have to be so strong and angry. Or you have to protest. And what you want to do is you want to defuse all that emotional bondage that occurs because it can keep recreating your house. Well, one, I had said just maybe a week ago or I don't know, can't remember. At the end, the sign-off was that I was telling people to tap in the happiness. When I was watching The Help, I was the emotional of how people are helping where they're not supposed to, or just reaching out and helping. You know, I just started to want to bawl, which I did. And if you ever watch the Freedom Riders, that made me bawl as well. And it gets caught up, and I can actually feel the physical symptoms of how it gets caught up in my chest and my throat. And I really wanted to let it in, but it's so painful. And that's what I've been discovering. And I noticed that where I had to hold was the joyful moment. And I was holding my left wrist in my first position, and that's the heart. And it was very joyful. So I had my hand on my forehead and my hairline. I was thinking about the joy, how wonderful this is, how great it is. And I just let the tears pour. Because it's called frightful overjoyed. And you can have too much of a good thing. Now, I'm not sure exactly what my story is yet because I haven't been able to discover. I just know I have problems, and I did not or was not able to develop an emotion. So it's an emotional arrested development, meaning it was unable to develop. So then when I saw this beautiful thing occur, and I'm doing my best to let it in, but I can't, and that's part of why I can't receive. And when you can't let it in, it actually, I mean, it was hurting. It was really, really hurting. Does this make sense? Okay. All right. So as that's happening, I'm having to learn how to develop this joy, or letting in the joy, because things have happening in my life. The past switch, like I have told people in the beginning of the year, was that I had to look at, on the wheel of life, what area of my life was not working. Wasn't a beautiful fat tin of joy. And it was our relationship, me and Scott, and I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And I had to be able to just be done. So I decided to say I'm done with my husband, but the universe, in the past switch, wanted me to say I was done so I would take my full attention off of this and move into the direction I needed to, but it was only temporary. Now, I've had it in my life where I was told to take my mind and my eyes off this and look in this direction, and that was a permanent path switch. This particular path switch was, I had to put my mind over here while the universe rearranged everything. It brought the relationship of me and my husband closer because we got to be in sync. It brought my relationship with my daughter and me more in sync. It brought one of my good friends to me to be more in sync because they are needed for the next part of my future path. At the time of the switch, and I'm already looking in the direction, the question was, turn around. Now you have a choice again. Do you want them back in your life? I'm like, what? And it's like, yeah, but it has to come in differently. It has to come on my terms, which was the boundary that I'm developing more of my authenticity, and I'm not going to lose it this time. So it wasn't that I was being greedy. It was being in, if you can be within me, in this space within me, with the authenticity that I'm finding of myself, then great, you can stay, and we will go forward, and we will get there. And so far, it has been 9 months, and I don't regret saying yes to having all of these wonderful people. The question that comes up is that, does that mean it puts everything else on hold? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know that. But I do know that I chose them, and now I have to wait for them to catch up to some degree. And my dreams in the last week or two have been simply telling me that the angels, like I got the number 45. Oop, where's my angel book? Aw, nuts. You might have to go get my angel book, Scotty.
What does your angel book look like?
It's a small little book that says angel numbers on it.
Oh, that one, yes.
And like I said, all my dreams, the fork in the road, just all of the little teeny tiny, because when I do a dream interpretation, I look at all of the sequence, very tiny, very small, and I look at it in such in-depth. And everything is about allowing goodness to come in, allowing ourselves to be at the next stage. And so number 45 for me said, and it's only one line, the angels are helping you through a positive life change. A positive life change. I just, how I got onto this path of doing the radio show was through a wonderful woman named Carol Watson.
Yes, Christy, it's Doreen Virtue.
Oh, yes. It's Doreen Virtue, Angel Numbers 101.
Yes.
And so, like I said, I had been introduced to this through Carol Watson and Unleash Your Magnificence, and she has her own show, and she's done at least over 400 shows already, and she's been doing it for quite a few years. And so I became a guest, and so, you know, she's had me on 4 or 5 times. I can't even remember now. So she's an awesome woman, and she lives over in the UK, and I have given her free sessions because, you know, of opportunity she's given me, so she understands the exchange theory. So here she is. She calls me up and says to me, I have something that you need to do because it's time. And I thought, what's she talking about? And she said it was a telesummit. Now, I have already talked to the woman that's in charge of doing the telesummit. Her name's Brenda. Beautiful name, by the way. And I'm like, this is really happening. And I'll go on in December. But in the meantime, it will be a telesummit with all these 12 speakers. It's talking about, you know, growing, changing your life, becoming better. And I'm going to be the closer of the group. So to me, that's exciting.
Yes.
It's the end of the 12 speakers, and then she says I can go in for an hour, 2 hours, or whatever, depending on the audience, if they got questions. And I just could not believe that I was asked to do this telesummit. And then I was excited. I didn't get nervous. I didn't say no. I said yes. It was just like boom, 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 boom. And she talked. And everything was in alignment because Carol and we know how we work with synchronicity. And she goes, oh, look at that. There's Brenda. I wasn't going to think I was going to see her tonight. There she is. So we got hooked up. We all got to talk. And it's happening. The fame of... And this isn't about doing it just for fame, but it's the success of how the journey of my soul is that I know that I'm supposed to talk about this stuff. I know I am to do what I need to do and to get this information out there. So it hasn't hit me yet. I'm creating packages so that when you do the telesummit, then you get a heck of a great package. For, like, I think I'm going to choose the $97 one, or not sure exactly yet, but you give a bunch of things in this packet. I just am amazed by this. So here is how my growth pattern is, and this is just going to change the subject a bit. I was always a person that felt like I have lost the argument before I began. I would talk up and start talking if somebody was chastising me and I had to defend myself. So I would then stutter over words. Words wouldn't come out correctly. I would start to mumble, and then I would feel this wall of, it's a painful wall. It looked like a strip, you got stripes. This was a strip that stood in front of me, and I could feel my body going into the stress mode. I didn't get completely dried lips and my heart palpitations, but all the rest of it was coming into play. So now I'm going to tell you how I got there. I went to a meeting, and I have to wear, especially when I'm around these older people that long for the good old days. And so I had this necklace on so I could protect myself from this particular person because their energy is so long for the good old days. So
very negative energy.
Very negative, very, yeah. So as I'm talking and it came to fundraisers, and I was told by Spirit I need to bring it up again And I said the need of why we talk about fundraisers is to bring the money in for the group, to keep the society alive, to keep this growing, to keep this history preserved. And we need to start brainstorming. We need to just throw any ideas on the table. What can we do? How can we do it? What is the best way to do it? Because we just got done doing a silent auction. And as soon as I brought up a deck of cards, I didn't really get to say anything, and I could feel her spittle come across the table onto my face, covering my glasses, as just the venomous of how she was just going, a deck of cards,
not gonna work.
I'll tell
we'll
you.
be stuck with them forever.
And, yes. And I says,
Oh,
we
come
are
on.
Historic
We have
Society.
the money.
Of course we're going to, it'll be in
Oh.
history. But that's not what I came up with. When she was going on and on, I didn't feel the anger come off her. I didn't feel the energy penetrate and hurt me. Spirit said, tell her about platform. And I said, all right. And so as soon as she got done spittling, I was nice enough to let her finish. I said, and yes, you are absolutely correct. In the past, in the old days of where you were, you didn't sell much. Eventually you got rid of them, didn't you? So you can't really say it sat around. I says, but you have to remember, you didn't have one thing that I know. And that is I went to a writer's conference and I learned about platform. You can be the most famous writer of all times, a great, fabulous artist. But if you don't have a platform, people that are in that same familiarity, in sync with you, that would want it, and to be in it, and to get to know you, and they want a piece of that, then you have nothing. Then they were talking at the writers' conference about how people were so excited. They wrote their book, they did this, they bought 10,000 copies, it sits all in their garage, and they sold 2, maybe 10, and it's usually to the family. And if you don't have the platform, you're going to be stuck with the backlog. And I said, so that's why I created Facebook for this. And you have over 430 some friends now. Does it mean all 430 some are going to buy the stuff? No. But year after year, the platform gets bigger. And as long as we keep showing people that we're doing something, we're going to catch somebody's attention, what's going to make them want to be more involved. By showing nothing, it looks like we're already dead. So we need to not just come here, have these meetings, and bitch, because nobody's going to know. That's not active enough. You need to get more involved. And how do you do that? Well, the only way I know right now is the internet, and she just wants to bash the internet. Well, I don't even know if she knows what an internet is.
No, she doesn't have a
She probably thinks it's a
computer.
net that's within a net. Who knows?
I see.
You know, I don't know.
Yes.
And
Meant to share and inspire, yes.
yes, and what and for the first time, as I'm standing saying what I need to say, I felt this wall hit me. It's like, oh my God, I'm almost scared to keep talking because I'm going to get shot down. But that's not what I felt. I felt it sit there, and I looked at the color, and it was gray with dark blue, and which represents the fear, and then going into that right, wrong, and it's into that third option. It is into that my will to do this. I have the power to speak what I need to speak, and that ability to bring in more information where it's not going to be cut off. And it was like, oh, I'm almost scared to do that. So I had to heal that particular feeling that it was just priceless, because I wasn't doing it to attack. I still was just going to talk regardless if she's in the room, and I explained why it was important. And the next thing you know, because I talked about brainstorming, the guy on my left started to brainstorm. Started to ignore what she was going to say and just said, oh yeah, we could do this, this, and this. Then the other guy on my right started saying, yeah, we could do this, this, and this, and that. And I watched her face as she's looking at me, listening to me. All of the anger left her face. And you could tell, and it had nothing to do with right, you could tell she had never thought of that idea. And for the first time, it felt good, because in the past, she would carry around and moan and complain to everybody about how crappy I am or how this and that. And the very first time that I had to approach her, she was sitting right beside me, and she started to blah, 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 blah. And I just said what I had to say, and she was completely pissed at me. But guess what? I gained her respect, which then shocked me. And I'm thinking, seriously? how does that help me to have her respect, I guess, so that we can constantly fight and battle? No, I don't want that. And all I can tell you is that my growth process is that I'm learning to be able to speak, move forward, do what I need to do. To me, that's important. It really is. Like my husband, he's learning to be who he is. Now,
Yep.
when I was there, what was interesting to watch is the other people that are constantly enduring other people's anger. Now, I've seen my husband, he had to get put up by this, as he called it, a land cow. Don't be upset. You called her that, but she was very much parked herself in the middle of the aisle, and she was very heavy in her weight, and she was very angry.
She
And-
just was a bitter person.
And Scott was like, oh, I don't even want to be down this aisle, but he needed to get what he needed
Had
to
to
get.
get around her.
So how do we handle
my
those
gosh.
people? I've learned in the past that, because I was a little girl that was around it, I couldn't be a rebel. I would take the long way around. I was the one that suffered. And now that I've gotten older, when people are very negative, I just try to stay out of their way. But at the same time, it eats me alive because I can still feel it. And then there was a gentleman that was there, and he's sitting next to her all the time, and I thought, he comes up to me, and I would have never, ever said anything, but then all of a sudden he starts talking, and out of my mouth goes, how can you be around her? I know, I get that you get along with her, but how do you do it? I don't know how. Tell me how you do it. He's looking at me and he goes, oh, when she gets bitter? Oh, I just make it, he goes, I joke. He says everything is, he said another word, a wit. He uses wit. And I'm like, but I don't know if I can use wit. And I'm not sure how to do any of this. You know, and my husband's witty all the time. You know, my roommate's witty all the time. But at the same time, why didn't I know how to use wit? A lot of times in our household, it was a lot called back talk. And that's not tolerated. And then I watched how I wasn't going to become my sister. So I wouldn't do that wit or the back talk or whatever it was, sassy or whatever people call it. Because it wasn't tolerated or accepted. Now, the energy of this space is understanding that your soul is constantly speaking to you, and you have to decide how to learn to be able to hear it. You know, I know that the soul language, and that's, again, I haven't decided how I want to do this, but specific information is very important, because don't conform of this world, but renew your mind. That's in the Bible of 12:2. Now, I'm not all about religion, but I am about helping you understand that even Einstein says you can't solve the problem with the same mind that created it. We were watching how meditation has been so important because they can measure it, and I can't remember if I sent it to Karen or not. Probably forgot. I was trying to figure out how to get the internet to work yesterday. But what it was is that I don't think it's the moment. That's another one. It could be the choice. That's the video. There's some videos on my wall, but what it was is that they measured that when they had meditation and peace, they followed each other on this graph that they were able to measure. There's on October 20th, there is called the moment, and I don't know, I have to look at the times and stuff, but what's going to occur is that there's going to be so many people who are going to be meditating because the energy is going to be just the right time to meditate, and that's going to help create a shift in the consciousness of where we need to be. And I am so excited about this because I feel that already building, because it's already in the conscious thought. It means it's already come into place. It's already worked once, and they know the pathway to conquering the fear. My job is to help people to live from day to day, not having to just live with it. You lived and learned. I thought that was a cool phrase, but then I realized that all it means is that you have lived, and then you learned, but you kept it. The pain, the anguish, you couldn't make it stop. So I know that you can take and resolve all that you lived with. File it away, clean it up, like when you clean off the countertops. You're not denying it happened, but you're filing it away. What happens then is that you then get to clean up that caudate nucleus of the fear, and joy becomes a natural process. So that you don't have to conquer everything, you actually can just resolve and create a new pathway. You know, I like when people are familiar with what I'm saying because it helps me. And on the chat room, what's beautiful is that somebody shared a particular part of their life, and that's showing vulnerability, and I'm very proud, and hopefully I can talk to you about it. And I don't have to say who the person is, but they believed in, well, actually, I'm going to ask if the person in the chat room, is it okay to air, because we're going to, put it on YouTube and talk about it out loud. If it is, just say yes. I can talk about the subject. And anyway, so you can even say, type in there and say, do you mind me sharing you, so that she knows who we're talking about. Now, there's a lot, it sounds like Karen and me have a lot of, we like Lynn McTaggart that talked about, I can't remember what it's called, frequencies and things like this, and that measures meditation. And so we can really understand that when you're healing your issues, you're changing the consciousness. You are the one that's in charge of changing your consciousness. When you see the world in such chaos, you go like, oh, I hate that. Go heal it. That's in the heart meridian. And if you're like, oh, I need to fight and stand up for that, notice the intensity. If you go heal that, then you are unplugging from that matrix. And what happens is you now then can start putting joy into that space instead of concentrated agreement of that it has to vibrate to stay that same. It's another way of meditating because you're choosing to resolve the issues, and you're choosing to launch with intention to heal the environment and the group consciousness because you're ready for a change. So it's very important to notice any time when you're out of sync and out of love that closure needs to take place, because your life force is agreeing to keep this consciousness in one particular area. And if you allow yourself to heal, what you're doing is like cleaning the countertop. You chopped up the food, you did this, it's dirty, it's messy, you want to be clean for the next thing you put on the counter. And when you are having issues, or you feel strong that you have to fight for a right or a cause, the thing is that you can, once you remove the negativity and the motivation of anger to get through it, if you heal that, then you'll be able to show another better, healthier alignment that you can do something and change the world. You'll do it on a grander scale because you're changing the conscious, but then you will also know how you have to stand up and show up in a different way. Like with me, I'm not angry at consciousness, but I know that my part is to help people change that consciousness so we can get in a proper alignment. So anyways,
Okay, I'll read from one of our...
Did she say?
Yeah, I'll read from one of our posters.
Okay, so we want to say thank you.
And
this again is a form of an agreement to help you understand how fear sets into a person, because we didn't consider the, what do I always tell you? Always consider the source. So when energy comes shooting at you, very personal, in face, then all of a sudden you forget to consider the source, and it's the emotions, the reaction that you give that sets in. So here you go.
Okay, I'm probably going to mispronounce the name, but I'll try my best here. Okay, this is from one of our viewers here. It says, I was once at a... Oops, it just scrolled up on me.
Hold on, keep your finger up there.
Yeah, I was once at a Laish League International Conference doing a talk as a lactation consultant.
A lactation consultant, cool.
Okay, I happened to mention that one of my kids nursed until he was 4. One woman at the conference went crazy and said that I was sexually abusing him.
Oh my God.
I explained that it was a slow weaning, yada yada, and I felt so bad. 5 years later, I met her at a conference. She approached me and apologized and said that after a discussion, she studied to be a doula and learned that it was a choice that works for the child and family only, and no one has the right to judge. Yeah. And she says in Europe they are okay. Let's see. The Transcendentalists did a few experiments on meditation, improve crime lower, etc. Okay, in Europe they are. He didn't nurse every day, maybe once a week when he was tired or hurt or sick, but you're so right. I went home thinking that I was the one doing the wrong, and fear set in. Yes, because like I mentioned in the chat room, I had read my history books and that. I know they used to nurse the kids until they were 4 or 5 years old. Back then it was mainly because they didn't have all the food to feed them.
Right.
And mom was the source of food for the little ones.
Well,
so
when I was told that, hey, you're pregnant, oh, okay, I'm going to have babies. So then it become, how are you going to raise your children? I chose to breastfeed because we didn't have a lot of money, but I chose to breastfeed.
We wanted the healthier stuff for our kids. I've read all the stories. It's so much better to give them the real milk. And I can give you an example when it comes to my dad raised sheep all these years, and we would get some orphan lambs every year. We'd lose the mama or something. We'd have little baby lambs we'd have to feed. And this milk replacement milk stuff we always bought, unless you had real lamb's milk, they would turn into runts. They wouldn't grow. They just would not grow good and strong like a lamb raised on real lamb's milk. You know, it just, that stuff that the factories made or whatever could never match what the real sheep had. And after a while, my daddy finally bought a milk goat, and we would milk this goat. We put the goat milk in plastic baby bottles, and we would freeze them. Actually put a piece of cellophane or whatever over the top thing and rubber band it around it. We put them in the freezer, so we had the, you know, because goat's milk and lamb's milk is nearly the same, and the lambs would do great on that. But we learned that milk back then, it just, the fake stuff, it just wouldn't, you know, definitely you want to have real mother's milk anytime you can. It's just, I think it's better for the kids.
Yeah. Like I said, for me, okay, I'm pregnant, I'm going to nurse my kids. Now, I nursed my kids, and I learned that the child, if it doesn't understand how to comfort, then it has to figure out how to handle and cope. And I didn't have the healing tools back then to help my children process, but I allowed my child to basically tell me when he was done breastfeeding, when he wanted to potty train. Because when we grew up, you know, and my parents were not nasty, it's just the group consciousness said that you had to do it a certain way. And, you know, you had to be potty trained by 1 year old. And there's something wrong with you, you know. So my son, basically, you know, every day I would introduce the toilet to him, and he eventually potty trained himself. It was not hard to have him, you know, discover, and, you know, what is this? How does that work? Cool, let's do it. Breastfeeding, I had to stop when he was 2 because I was already pregnant for my other child, and at that time, I thought, oh my God, I have to figure out how to wean him, and I gave him a passy. Everybody's like, you should have done that, and I'm like, you know what? I want my child to have comfort in some way to pacify himself, you know. I just, you know, what can we do? And so when, you know, my daughter's born, so I'm going to breastfeed, and I always try to do it in private so that he didn't give me that look. And I didn't know at the time what the look was going to be, but it happened.
Hey, those are mine.
He walks in, the pacifier's in his mouth, he's going, he's looking. He sees me feeding another baby,
yes,
and it's like he stopped sucking. I thought that pacifier was going to be flung out of his mouth, and I thought he was going to yell and scream and say, gimme, gimme, gimme. I didn't know. It was horrifying. He just backed away and thought, you traitor. And I'm like, oh my God. You know, and there was not a thing I could do because, you know, his soul was going to react, and then if he passed the test, great, and if he didn't, then he's got some lessons to learn. Well, it was horrifying to watch. And then my daughter, the same way. About age of 2, you know, she's pretty much, yeah, I don't care. I don't want any more to do that. Let's do that. So I had helped my kids choose when it was wonderful enough for them to wean themselves and train themselves to move in a different direction. Yeah, I want the real thing. It's a ripoff. That was exactly what his looked like. I was so horrified because my husband wasn't there, and I'm holding the baby, and I want to go comfort him, and he's like, don't touch me, woman! I mean, oh my God! Literally was trying to figure out, how do I calm my son down?
Oh.
And he would just give me the look when he'd sit on the couch watching TV, and of course I had the baby in my arms, and she wasn't drinking. He would just cross his arm, suck that passy look at me like, how dare you? Really? Really? Oh, God. Oh, cartoon. You know, and then as soon as the cartoon, how you doing? Yeah. I'm like, oh. You know, but he's a great kid. Him and her have learned to love one another. They never really fought, and then when the teenage years come in, then everything started to change. But one thing is we forget to consider the source. You don't know where the information comes from, but again, it's your soul needs to set up these points with these people to allow you to see what your reaction is going to be. You're going to pass the test, or you're going to have to fail and start over again, or learn something else. And I created this woman to be in my space when I was 28, okay? But that signature of her wasn't the first. I call them silver platter people. And that is they'll give you the world, both a butcher knife in their back. and waiting to put in your bag. And the first people that actually showed me that was my father. Now, why do I say that? It's because my father was somebody that you're supposed to love, your parents. There's just that part of you that just loves. You start to bond because they are in your space. What got me was when the terror of his love turned into something horrifying. So it was like, why would I want that love? But yet, because I had that experience, and then the lady that when I was 28 had the same signature, I ended up not considering the source, that she is the type of person that was just out there to make it benefit her. So when I healed that, I felt like I didn't see it coming, and it came out of nowhere, and she was constantly mean. And when I started to heal that issue with my father, I healed her out of my life. It was the best thing that ever happened. And when I saw her again, there was no fear, animosity, hate, resentment, any of that. I started laughing because I didn't feel any of those fears. Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And I don't know what world she lives in, and I don't care. I'm not sitting there with my RTJP thinking what she's thinking. She doesn't become the center of my attention. I literally now can grow and move past her. That's the beauty of why I sit here and want to tell you how to become a spiritual human. And the education, renewing the mind. Einstein talked even about I can't remember what the phrase was, but it was something about knowledge, and it will actually set you free to some degree. And the knowledge, I says, okay, God, help me understand, why do we have sicknesses and disease? Why is it that there are so many people that say they're happy but are meaner than hell? Why, you say, do we have to create heaven on earth? So that means we already created hell first? Why? So all these questions, and I let the universe communicate and talk, and when I created, looking at this report, everybody had it, but they didn't know what they were looking at, and the synchronicities that were there. And so this information just comes and lines itself up. And there has been a dictionary that I ended up, or glossary of terms. These words have different definitions, and a lot of times we think we know a word when really we don't know the word or the phrase. And it's important to start defining it for you, because we have history of genetics, history of our soul's journeys. Because as I'm watching The Help today, I swear to God I was a black woman in a past life, and I knew it because there was one part when she was talking about, oh yeah, they're going to do it's just lining my kids up and they're going to shoot them in front of me, you know, so that I can show how bad of a person I am. And I know I had that happen as a witch or a wise woman, and I know I had that happen in a couple other times where they would just hurt me, and they wouldn't hurt me first, they would hurt the people I love. And so there's nothing I can do about it. And we're carrying all these codes. That's why it's so important to take that caudate nucleus and actually realize that you are more than just a human being that wakes up every single day and walks out into this world and shit happens. No. It repeats because we are not happy with it. It's because we have energy loss. That we have got to decide how to create closure so we can change that part of the consciousness. And when there's you, and so as I call it, if you take God and then God contemplated within, then when he came back out, or the balance part of this great spirit, then created space where there's God and then the mirror image. Between that space is energy, space, consciousness, and time. And the time is the space that happened between the mirror image and God. And when the moments we have turned inward and learned to contemplate and then come back out of it, is all those planes of existence that we have created. And within those planes of existence are all these different levels of parallel paradigms and parallel universes and string theory and all of these things and difference. Like right now we're moving out of the Hertz, H-E-R-T-Z, frequency into the more of the infrared of the consciousness. And you're going to be happier and healthier and stronger, and you are becoming more and more awake. This meditation that people go inward and they meditate, well, I never was able to learn this because I was supposed to learn how to outward meditate. Because your inner world creates your outer world, and if you can understand what you're projecting, then it'll be just like as if you meditated within and found peace. but this is intentional living. This is taking in resolution oriented about how you will become. Hertz energy, how would you describe it, Scott? He looks at me funny. What are you talking about?
Well, that's just a measure of the frequency of
electricity and...
Like, we operate on 60 hertz. That's how many cycles, how many, if you look at, I don't know, wave pattern, I guess?
Yes,
how many
wave
cycles,
pattern.
60 cycles per minute, and 60 hertz, where the Europeans have all electricity on 50 and so forth.
But we do measure those frequencies at that rate, and it's a very low
yeah.
rate. But then if you take and go the frequency or the code, the mathematical code, to everything, it's measured in hertz.
There's
like,
hertz and kilohertz and all that.
Like in organs, certain organs have certain numbers that they represent, and it is the frequency in waves. Parasites, they realized, like, was not Tesla, the Rife machine, Royal Rife. He took and found out that the parasites and the viruses came at a certain frequency, so he made a machine to take and you set it to that certain frequency, and you hold on to like metal and then stuff that like a lotion, so it's a conduit. And what happens is that then your body starts to get that frequency. It doesn't harm you, but it gets and attacks the stuff that needs to leave your body. There's all these wonderful things that have been shown through time, but again, the group consciousness is what needs to be changed, because the group consciousness is based on pimp and hoe energy. Is I'm going to put my dream into you and convince you that you have it, but yet I'm the one that's going to benefit and you're not you. And there you look at the biggest thing is that medicine was there to say we're there for you. Well, we do pour all this money to do research for cancer treatments, and what we're finding out is that it's basically a money issue. And some conspiracy theories and things like this, I have found more answers for cancer than has to do with the old way of doing it, is that the poison doesn't kill you first, then your lucky chance that you may live. Interesting song. Chrissy said about the pineal gland. What does it say real quick?
Oh, let's see.
I have heard that different
musical tunes affect the pineal gland.
Now, here's what's beautiful about this. If you ever get a chance to study voice bio, and what it was Kay Thompson said, okay, there's musical notes that are found in the body, and each one is related to a specific organ. And if these musical notes do not show up on a bell curve, as a bell curve, then if it's too high or too low, they'll represent something. And that is absolutely true, because she is taking, in the voice bio machine, measures different voice patterns. It doesn't matter what you say. If you were to think about, and that's the process, if you were to think about the effects of, let's say, mundane stuff, so you're thinking of the mundane stuff, you're producing those chemical peptides, and that's what it's measuring, is the frequency of the notes. And then if you're stressed, that will measure the frequency of the notes. And then if you think of the future, that'll tell you. When people like mine and him, if I can get my machine working again, I would like to be able to do ours and seeing if we're coming into sync. There was a point when Kay Thompson went to a woman's shelter, took a woman that was beaten and a man that would beat her, and they agreed to do the voice machine. And what it showed was that the woman had no physical attributes, which was the C and the B's, and she was full of an emotional and mental attributes, and it was too full, and then she went and did the man's. The man's had too much physical, which was C and B, and not enough of the mental and emotional, which was all the rest of the notes. And they fit perfectly together, but it was a violent, abusive relationship. Kay said that when she starts to learn to be strong, live on her own, getting that root chakra moving, then this woman will outgrow him and no longer need that frequency, and can then grow from that space. So I do believe that we are affected by music and sound and many other little things, and so it's important. Now, I asked Spirit, what is it that you want everybody to learn or to understand? And so I grabbed a card from Colette Baron Reed. This is the Enchanted Map, and it was upside down in the Ghostlands. Now, I had already read that once, but they want me to decipher it according to what the soul wants you to understand. It says, when the Ghost Lands card appears reversed, it's a sign that you are wandering in an emotional or intellectual place with no real substance. That means you're not ready. You're not supposed to be there. It is that part of you that you don't have a leg to stand in. Just wait, just wait. Because it says there's no point of longing for that which has already gone or hasn't happened yet. Now, what happens when I watch people when they are longing in great sadness and the grief of wishing they had their younger days, or wishing that their child was alive, or wishing that what happens is it creates those chemical peptides of grief, and it actually starts to deplete you. And then those happy peak points don't really last. Then I've watched people get together and say, oh, do you remember the time that we did this? Ah, ha, ha. And literally was laughing, and then the laughter has become the great medicine. It actually strengthened them. So it depends on where you're wandering. If you're going to be doing it with grief and loss, if you're going to be doing it with the intention of pain and suffering, then it's not going to be helpful to you or your soul physically, mentally, or emotionally. Okay, it says, now, if I read a little further, perhaps you've created a fantasy of the good old days or some exclusive utopian destination that lies somewhere in the future when this or that happens to make things better. Which means you're not living in the present because you don't understand how to cope with the present, how to be in the present, because the thinking of the future was to help your spirit to grow, explore, and dream. Like I had in the last caller, the caller was not able to dream because she was supposed to fulfill that parent's dream that she has to be a strong, independent woman. And it takes away some of the dreaming that she would like to do on her own. When you are living in the future, oh, that'll be better. There's a part of you believe that it could be, but if you were to ask the soul says, no, you'll never get that. So there's not a lot of strength that that's going to happen. So you barely are hanging on to hope. But it is hope in one way or the other. But in this case, this hope isn't really causing you to light the candle of love and faith. It's only causing you to just sit in the dark, maybe just have a twinkle of light here and there, but just survive or be in the moment of existing and not even surviving. Living one day at a time, each day is a new beginning filled with truth and beauty. Stay away from the ghost lands of the past and the future. Avoid nostalgia and longing for something better. If you're longing for something better, then that automatically means, okay, so even though I don't believe I have it good, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. If you're believing that you don't have it good, then heal it. Find joy in what is present in your life today. You don't even have to find joy. If you heal that particular piece, joy will just automatically be in your space. That is just a given because you will be healing the fear in the caudate nucleus, and the only thing that replaces the fear would be joy because you get a chance to become more of who your true identity is. Did you need to talk to me about something?
No, Chrissy says, my brother, sister, and my dad died within 2 years. And my mom cannot see past the grief that makes her extremely physically ill.
You know, and you said that so softly, I hope everybody else heard it. Yeah, but since that's true,
So bad.
when you lose back-to-back, you know what they did? They did a study, and I cannot tell you what show I was watching, but they had 12 couples up on the stage, and actually it was basically 12 people, but other people then had to judge who's really, really happy and who is the saddest or the most stressed or whatever. And then they interviewed everybody, and the audience did the little test. They said the person that was the happiest was the one that was the most busy. And the one that had all the grief was the one that was the saddest. And when they were talking, they didn't, let the people that were doing the interview, they didn't let them know what the audience said. And so then they asked them the next set of questions. The woman, and they even tested her with something, I can't remember what the machine was, the woman that lost all those lives, she actually was the happiest because she was able to love herself more. She had learned to grow from that space, where the person that was completely working all the time, stressed all the time, they were so unhappy. They look like they're happy, but they weren't because they never got to just stop, breathe, and listen. I do understand about grief. When my boyfriend died, I had lost at least 2 years that I don't remember, and another year or two to get out of it. And when I woke up, it's like, what had happened to my life? And I can tell you that when you're holding that grief, it doesn't help you. I know that you have to have a mourning period. When my mother started to die, I learned some healing tools, not as much as I have today, and I was able to process the grief of having to take care of her. And you think, why would you have grief taking care of her? Well, it's a lot, day in and day out, to help someone for 4 years and to lose your identity, and you don't get a life, you become living their life, and you don't ever want to admit that they're a burden. But you are human, and you do need to live and to dream. So I was able to heal the pain of the fact that she had cancer, and then I had to heal the pain because I was not about to go back and do what I did with my boyfriend and just lose it. Grief can hold on. I've been helping this one woman, and she doesn't want to let go of her husband. She knows that she would like to, but she doesn't want to let go because there's a fear that if she lets that go, she'll never know love again. And she literally is going into a Parkinson's state of mind because she can't process the idea of that loss. She's not ready to go there. And I keep telling her, when you're ready, we will get there. And she's like, okay, you know, she's a lot farther than she was before, because when she went in for the Parkinson's, oh, you have such a mild-mannered one. Yeah, we can help you out quite a bit. I'm not saying that everybody's going to get Parkinson's, but this is just her. This other person was so into the pain that they lost focus on the rest of their life, and I went and I helped them, and I said, let's look at just the pain, one step at a time. And as we did, the person was able to recover, move forward, and understand that, yeah, the person died. I gave them a process tool. Whereas the other person, like I told you about when the husband died, her safety blanket was preventing her to heal at a deeper level because she couldn't and didn't want to deal with something very specific that had happened earlier in her life. Pain can hurt. When you are thinking of those thoughts, your brain will produce those chemical peptides and will literally cause you to go into a checkout point, to go into a stress, even if it's mild. I've watched people go into depression, and the loop continues until you break that loop. But if a person doesn't want to let it go, I know when my boyfriend died, I would have loved to have somebody help me with the process of the pain. What the hell to do with that pain? But there wasn't anybody. I couldn't even turn to somebody to talk to about the pain because nobody understood what I was talking about. Oh, there, you'll get over it. Yeah. I'm like, shut up, I don't want to talk to you. I just wanted a way to process the pain. And it's funny because the next card that popped up that I need you to listen to learn about, or whatever it is that they want to learn, is called movement. You are in the time of positive forward motion. This is a time for positive momentum as you come out of the period of restriction. Well, my life was always in a restriction, and if you're unable to really bring that in, the only way that I can say that if you know restriction and you haven't healed it, heal the restriction first. But if you've learned that you don't have to be in restriction, but as the joy starts to come and starts to choke you, then I would definitely heal it, because most of the time it will fall, not all the times, but will fall in the heart meridian. And that would be left wrist, first position, deep. Because it's our heart that brings the lower chakras and the upper chakras together, and it is the way we need to process both upper and lower chakras in order to move forward. The upright position, it says, this is a time for positive momentum. You're in a stage of a new adventure. Now, here's the thing. You don't even have pathways for that. You may watch the catalog of life that tells you that there's pathways, but there's a party that's almost frightened to think, how can I let that in? And then because we've never experienced it, and we start to experience it by watching the catalog, it's like, oh my God, it's too overwhelming. Not able, again, to process that emotion. That's why you want to process. You may feel compelled to take a trip, change your hair, or move your home or business. Regardless, you can't remain where you are anymore. You feel compelled to go forward. This is like my experience when you have to be okay to lose your friends. When my spirit said it was time for me to go from that direction over to that direction, I couldn't hear that forward motion. All I heard was, you can't be friends with this person anymore. What? You're taking something away? And I did my best to ignore that, and then I finally said, okay, I don't want to. There's a lot of fear. I don't want to lose my friends. So when I healed that, and then I stopped going to my friend's house, a whole other world opened up. And I'm so grateful for it, but at the time I couldn't see that the universe was unfolding in a beautiful way. So let's see here. No matter what your inquiry, you will see your dreams take form and doors previously shut begin to open as if by magic. So you have to be allowed to take that change, just like we were talking about changing your underwear. When you change your underwear, it can be very easy. Change can happen as often as you need it. Movement is also a state of mind. The fog lifts, and you know the actions you need to take. This isn't the time for fear. Let it go and move forward. When I asked Spirit, what do you mean by let go? It was to take how we know something, the intensity of it, maybe the self-talk, whatever it is, we need to allow ourselves to decide we're done and to take that intensity and process it. I'm here to teach you the process.
We don't have much time left. Chrissy says she'd like a reading about her job. She's getting mixed messages, and I feel so much fear right now. So let's do a quick reading.
Tap out the fear. That's what I will definitely tell.
We only got about 30 seconds left.
When the show's over, I will just stay on for a little bit. I will type in a few things.
Okay,
I don't know if the mic will be open, but... And so here's...
Oh, wait.
Okay. So 60 seconds, we're going to be showing our outro in just a minute. Thank you all for coming. We will be here on Friday at, well, not on Blog Talk, but on Sepia Radio. So just call in or listen into the show at 2 to 4 on Eastern Standard Time. We'll be on sepianc.com radio, and we'll see you then. Honey, our outro, you have to hit it. We're already late now.